you gonna say, Abner?
This North funding is horrible. The 18 million they lost was supposed to go towards 629 jobs in Canada.
Yeah, it sounds like they lost the money because they didn't follow through with the promise of securing those jobs, if that makes sense. It sounds like the like it was on them to make sure that they made these jobs, and instead of making jobs, they
So I wonder
killed 200 jobs.
It's probably way too expensive to do it in Canada. That is disappointing.
Oh, just so you know, Ben, we don't do like the cheesy intro anymore. We just jump right in.
Okay.
So whenever it seems like I'm talking about something relevant. All right, so let's make sure. I'm publishing the post right now, actually. And let's just all tweet at the same time so that
Hey, Abner, you might know this if I have a second to say it.
Yeah.
Has there always been a shortcut to automatically put your phone on vibrate?
To when you turn it upside down?
No, like a hardware shortcut. Because I kind of stumbled on it when I was setting up the Razer phone, and I just realized it also works on the Pixel. Power and volume up.
Wow, never realized that.
I just stumbled across it when I was setting up the Razer phone.
Huh.
It's kind of awesome.
Except buttons are whole. I can't wait for the buttonless phone. Other topic for another day. Or in a few minutes.
Are we going to see something at MWC that's kind of close?
I assume Meizu and, what was it, Vivo? They'll probably have their buttonless phones there.
Meizu. The one we saw was Meizu, right?
They both did one. Meizu did one, and then Vivo did one the next day.
All right, so let's get started. So first this week, we had a surprise announcement of a Google event, which I guess we could kick off the show talking about that. What do we think that this is going to be a made by Google event? Are they going to use the made by Google hashtag? Or is this like, I don't know, is it going to be kind of a detached from the rest of Google's hardware stuff?
Detached. I doubt it's going to be we're going to see made by Google branding explicitly. What we're talking about is on Tuesday, Google announced that it was hosting a keynote. Those are their words, a keynote at the Game Developers Conference next month in San Francisco. So this is the CES, the MWC of the gaming world, and it's more than those events. It's very much focused on developers and getting out the latest technologies and showcasing new products and that kind of stuff. Well, not even products. It's definitely a trade show, a technology show. And Google, usually they have a Google Developer Day, which just involves them explaining their latest Android stuff and Google Play stuff for game developers. But this year, the Tuesday, March 19th, they are hosting an event, and from how they're describing it, it's going to be a very big deal.
It seems like it. We got our invite, and Abner and I are both going to be on the ground at GDC in San Francisco. And this is kind of a new thing for me because I have never been to GDC, but I've never really been to any kind of conference that's video game related. So I'm excited, but yeah, like you said, it's going to be a really big deal, I think, or it seems like it. We've been hearing about something called Project Yeti, which is a game streaming service of some kind that has been rumored for about a year now. I think the first report came out of the information, and basically the gist seems like Google's trying to build the Netflix of AAA titles. And we saw kind of our first like peek at I guess the technology that's probably going to be powering this, in the form of Project Stream, which is a demo that Google recently ran, a test, I should say, that basically let people play Assassin's Creed Odyssey on their PCs in the Chrome browser. And it's all streamed over the web. There's a demo video on YouTube showing it streamed like 1080p, 60 frames per second or whatever. I'm sure it uses up a lot of bandwidth, a lot of data, and that's probably going to be the bottleneck for this Project Yeti. But anyways, the event itself, it seems like it's going to be two things. One, that streaming service seems to be on its way, Project Yeti, and also hardware, which we don't really know what the hardware is, do we?
No. The last indication we had about hardware was in February. The information again described it as a hardware console and a hardware controller. Google apparently at one point tested prototypes like a Chromecast dongle, but I guess the piece of hardware we're all thinking about right now is some kind of streaming box that's definitely bigger than a dongle. So maybe think like
I'm
the
thinking
NVIDIA
Nexus Q.
Nexus.
A little orb. I think that'd be perfect if they just like brought back the exact same form factor, and it doesn't need to be significant hardware. It can. Our Kyle mentioned like
those.
Yeah, me too. Our Kyle mentioned, and it's a given that if all of the processing is being done in the cloud, this is, I mean, the only real bottleneck here is the data, and a lot of people probably aren't going to have good enough internet connections to even use this service. But all you really need is like Chromecast, like hardware wise, and who knows? Maybe they could beef up the specs a little bit for whatever reason. But
so
yeah, what's up?
The thing about this is it going to run Android TV? Is it just going to be a Chromecast, or to have Chromecast capabilities? The idea that Google is just releasing a single use piece of hardware is odd.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it will be it will have some kind of software beyond just being the quote unquote cast platform that we've seen used on the Chromecast and Google Home Hub. Because I mean, I've heard from a source that it actually has, and this is Alphabet Scoop exclusive information. So apparently it has its own chat platform of some kind.
Oh my god. Is that messaging or voice? I'm
not sure. We don't know the details. Presumably voice, but this would be in addition to the messaging mess. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a source that's directly involved in this project, so I don't know much. But apparently the hardware exists, it's real, and it's coming at that event, as our Abner Lee here reported yesterday.
Yes, we got the tease Google gave us on Tuesday was very vague. It showed a light shining at the end of a hall. It was all very mysterious. It was the said hallway is definitely rendered. It's not photorealistic. Well, it looks photorealistic, but it's not an actual thing. It's clearly from a game or something. And all we've known from this point on is that it's a service. But as we reported yesterday, hardware is coming for Project Yeti. And again, that Project Yeti is the name of this entire gaming effort coming from Google.
Yeah, I don't know if I was able really to deduce any meaning out of that little gather around the hallway, like the dark hallway with the light shining at the end of it. Like I wasn't able to. I mean, usually a lot of these kind of invites have
Yeah,
some kind of like hidden meaning, or like it's a lot of times an obvious meaning. But this one just seemed kind of. I mean, like previous Google events. I mean, even this past one, we saw some of the like I think the not pink color was kind of hinted at in them, and little tidbits of information, and it's extrapolation that it may or may not actually be what they intend. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping to see what that might. It's always interesting to see what these invites end up meaning. It's like maybe there's some kind of feature that would kind of allude to, or this dark hallway with the light at the end, like would allude to, besides just trying to build hype, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all gaming is. I feel like all advertising for gaming is based on hype and like pseudo mysteriousness.
Yeah,
maybe an exclusive game.
Yeah, who knows?
That
Kotaku kind of mentioned that, didn't they? What or and the Kotaku? Okay.
So I think what Kotaku was saying, that Google was interested in buying a game development house to get first party content.
Right.
That Google is shopping around. What they have definitely done is hire the top developers from, I think, PlayStation, EA, maybe. Those top development houses. Google's definitely on a hiring spree. They hired a top PlayStation, like a 20-year veteran of PlayStation and Xbox, to be VP of the gaming division, and they definitely hired other PlayStation execs to staff up this organization. But the idea that Ben mentioned of exclusive content of a first-party studio from Google would be interesting, because Google has that creative talent. They have organizations as like the Google Creative Lab that does their more interesting ads and that such. But Google doing a serious game that people would want to sign up for the service to play on is, I wonder if they're there yet, whether they have the structure to do that yet.
One of my favorite theories was that Google's going to introduce I saw someone commented this on Reddit. Google's going to introduce a full-fledged dino racer, like the Chrome minigame for those that aren't familiar, but like a full-fledged version of that in like 3D.
Realistic dinosaurs, and like in a gritty desert environment. You're the dinosaur. Oh, that's hard.
No, but I mean, we've seen Google do kind of dabble in these kind of things. I mean,
they have the virtual reality people.
Yeah, and they've also that's a perfect example. Thinking about Daydream and that whole world that's on, like in Daydream, like just the Daydream home screen itself is what I'm talking about. Is an interesting example of Google working on something like that. Another, lots of Google Doodles also have had little mini games as part of them, interactive. Obviously, the Dino Racer thing in Chrome, and there's Google Play Games too. Is another area
have
where
all this infrastructure, like a Google Cloud to run the cloud services. It's just a question that creative people that we've heard nothing about. But again, Google could have kept all of this under wraps.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think they're gonna probably. I mean, the Kotaku report said they were already shopping around, not just for potentially acquiring a game studio, but also just trying to get partners interested for signing on to this service. And it'll be interesting to see how big that launch catalog is. Are we talking 5 games? Are we talking like 50 games or even more? I don't know.
Okay.
I will say, I mean, one thing we know for sure is that Skyrim will be on it.
Oh, something equal to that level of quality. I think the quote Kotaku said was to imagine playing Skyrim in the Chrome tab or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the launch catalog. I guess, who do we expect this service to be for? Is this appealing to the casual gamers or the pro gamers?
I would say not. Like, As in pro, do you mean like esports? Because if it's esports, absolutely not.
Maybe just under esports, like Halo or Call of Duty, maybe.
Maybe if the latency is as good as NVIDIA, then maybe.
Yeah. That. As the proest of gamers around here, Ben, Stephen and I enjoy.
There's a reason we brought an on episode, because we're talking about gaming and Samsung and then Mobile World Congress. Definitely not three of Abner and I's most familiar. It's not our expertise.
So yeah.
Yeah, would you use this, Ben? Like, are you excited? Are you like, do you have friends that are like, oh, this is going to be a big deal? Or, I mean,
not really, but for me, I would use it. I would use it for games. Like, okay, so on my PC that I'm on right now, the majority of what I play is basically Rocket League. So it's a game that requires low latency and quick input. Stuff like that, based on what I've done on the Shield, might work, but it would feel like a console. So I feel like it's something to replace a console for probably less money that can play PC games, because a lot of games that are on PC, there are some that are exclusive to PC. It depends on what they launch with.
It's actually interesting that you mentioned that. It's kind of I see a little bit of a parallel with the Steam box, which, you know, never really materialized, but it was basically, you know, Steam wanted to bring Steam gaming to the living room, and that seems to be kind of what Google's trying to do.
Not really, actually.
I mean, obviously the Steam box was not going to be streamed. So there's that clear differentiator. Okay. But I'm just saying in the sense of I don't know, being a non-Microsoft and non-Sony and trying to enter the living room with a standalone hardware box. Microsoft and Sony have dominated the space since forever. You know, it's like there's Microsoft and Sony, and then there's Nintendo, and Nintendo's kind of like not even really competing. It's kind of like a separate entity that kind of like lives in its own space, even though there obviously is kind of overlap in third-party titles and stuff like that. But you know, it seems like Google's trying to go after this duopoly that's long existed, the same way I think Steam wanted to for a time. And Steam, I think, kind of finally accepted that they weren't going to be able to take that on. And I think they also realized that their install base are hardcore PC gamers, which they are PC gamers for a reason, you know. And so doing a living room console just didn't really make a lot of sense. But it seems like Google wants to do that, and it seems like the way they're going to do it is, I mean, they might sell this hardware itself. Let's say it is a little cube, like, or a little sphere, like a Nexus Q. They could sell it for $50, right? $50 for the little cube plus a controller, and you know, the streaming service costs $15 a month or $10 a month or whatever they decide to charge for it. I could see that getting, you know, a lot of people who might consider, they're kind of like not really, you know, really hardcore gamers, but they do want to play AAA titles in their living room. That seems like, I don't know, an attractive option versus buying an Xbox or a PlayStation to put in the living room. At least for me, it is. I don't own an Xbox or a PlayStation, and this kind of has me intrigued. So I kind of feel like I might be the target market, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this casual audience is, I think, way more interesting than this casual prosumer gaming audience that Google might want to capture, because like the Xbox and the PlayStation, they've increasingly they get the $200 now. It's not that expensive, and as technology goes on, the hardware price decrease. But if Google were to enter at like a significant sub 100 price category, that immediately shuts out the cheaper PlayStation and Xbox stuff. But even then, again, this all goes back to the content issue of what Google is going to be able to offer on their service, and whether for the majority of people that like gaming find the Google's offering attractive enough. Note on the quick question about the hardware for all of us. At first go, do you think Google is going to design a good gaming controller?
Nope, absolutely not.
No, I don't think so either.
I'll put it this way: NVIDIA for the Shields, their controller is good for like 20 minutes, and then it gets
It's
uncomfortable.
geometric hellscape. It looks great.
It's
pretty.
It's the best looking controller I own, but I cannot use that thing for more than 20 minutes.
Angles, very smart idea to put sharp angle things. So yeah, it's
also the spacing. The spacing's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the PlayStation controller and the Nintendo Pro controller, but no, there's no way Google's gonna get it right on the first go. Remember the one that came with the Nexus player was horrible.
Oh right, ASUS made.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, that wasn't Google though, but yes, you're right.
Oh, I completely forgot about the Nexus player existing and having like a gaming portion for the Play Store. That is a shocking thing.
No
anyway,
way to get it right first time.
We know for sure on the gaming front or the titles the catalog front, we know for sure a lot of titles that's not going to have. You know, all of those Sony exclusive titles that people love. You know, you're thinking like the Uncharted's, etc. You know, all the Microsoft titles that people love. You know, Zoo Tycoon. Just kidding. Halo. You know, but I mean, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There's a lot of these third-party publishers that I think we will see sign on because I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know enough about gaming to really be commentating on any of this, honestly. But Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a pretty popular title. I mean, we could see like Grand Theft Auto. You know, I'm thinking like BioShock type. You know, I don't know. There's lots of potential.
But the problem with that is that IP. All these game streaming services have that. It's table stakes. Like it's really interesting to see where Google is going to differentiate. What I'm thinking is like the likes of Firewatch and these indie developers. Google might have something there by getting like indie houses to come to Yeti or Stream as like a way to play a lot of good indie games. Again, this all comes down to the pricing incentive. But I think if Google is smart, they'll just be subsidizing the heck out of this to make the platform a good proposition for indie developers.
Another thing, I think Fortnite's going to be on day one because Epic Games has shown that they don't pick favorites at all when it comes to platform. Like Epic has been putting Fortnite on every single platform possible, and if so, I feel like probably the easiest title to secure for Project Stream would be Fortnite. So I mean, I guarantee you in the first ads that we see for this service that there will be Fortnite in it.
Probably. It'd be smart to try to get on that Apex Legends too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even though PUBG is better, but that's just me.
I don't know. I don't even know what that is. So, okay, yeah, I think we're pretty much good on that. We're excited. It's next month, March 19th. GDC.
We have 3 more weeks of speculation.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what I would guess that we're probably going to see the hardware leak before then. So stay tuned for that. Next up, let's talk about something that I guess the biggest news of the week this week was all of the Samsung announcements, which short version is they announced the Samsung Galaxy S10, the S10 Plus, the S10e, the Galaxy Watch Active, the Samsung Galaxy Buds, which are kind of the follow-up to the Icon X, and of course the Galaxy Fold, which is personally my favorite topic because I like to slam it and talk about how bad it is. But before we do that, is there anything at all that makes either of you excited about the S10 and S10 Plus?
The S10e is nice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. Well, I guess the answer is no then.
It's okay. It's pretty. The colors, the backing they're doing with that
the prismatic. That makes me excited.
It is gorgeous. Hard to photograph, hard to look at even, but it's very pretty. It's unique. It's good on Samsung.
this
I mean,
just Samsung being Samsung, or is it actually going to be worthwhile?
they're both going to be awesome phones. Like, there's no doubt in that. They're
Yeah.
both going to be great phones, but they're both going to get slow software updates. I'm curious about the fingerprint sensor because some people say it sucks, some people say it's better. But I mean, it's Samsung. It's the same every year. It's gonna be one of the best phones of the year. It's gonna have one of the best cameras, some of the best software, all that. One UI is a lot better, so that's just it. There's nothing really like crazy about it.
Yeah, it is, just another Samsung year, and when it comes to those two phones. And one thing though I think is really interesting that I think needs to be pulled out of that whole news cycle is these devices being able to wirelessly charge each other. I think this is like a really cool thing that is actually going to be really important in the coming years. And I think we'll probably see other manufacturers adopt it. Like, I think it would make perfect sense, for the iPhone to be able to charge your AirPods case via, wireless charging. And I think, this is one of those things where Samsung was first to it. And I think
Actually, Huawei did it last year.
Okay, well, they're the
Yeah.
first. I'll just say that they're the first for me to have known about it. They were first in that sense, and I think it's actually going to be something that catches on. And as long as battery technology does not improve, which it seems like is going to be forever, it's necessary. So yeah, and it also makes a lot of sense in this world of just having lots of disconnected devices, having a smartwatch and having AirPods and like all these different little phone accessory devices that we have, and eventually smart glasses or whatever. It's really cool that they're already that's a thing in a consumer product already, and yeah, I think it's probably going to catch on. Now the fingerprint sensor, I feel like is the opposite case where, I think that I think the S10 and maybe the S11 will be like the last couple of phones to even have fingerprint sensors, period. I know regardless of what your opinion on is the matter on it, like, I think that's where the market's going. I think that's just all the evidence points to these fingerprint sensors, at least the in-screen ones, being really, really bad. And it seems like all of the arguments for just how like easy they are to use, the facial recognition technologies are going to supplant them in the coming years. I say that as someone who has used an iPhone 10 for a year. If you haven't, then I would encourage you to do that and see what you think about facial recognition after that. That's my take on it. I don't know. What do you think? You were actually at the event. To be clear,
Yes.
Abner was actually at the event, and you got to use the biometric fingerprint sensor, right? Did you get to test it, or
they didn't allow demos?
So just like the Galaxy Fold, is this fingerprint sensor vaporware or what?
They didn't let us. They said it wasn't set up for us to use. So that was the first question. So that was out the window. But again, like I said at the top of the show, I was immediately drawn to the S10e as this. It doesn't physically, they're not that much smaller, but it's small enough that it makes a much cuter package. It just looks like even though the screen is flat and it's not curving, I think we're at a point where everything is curved, that when somebody goes back to like a standard flat design, it's kind of distinguishes itself. And again, like the size, it's the aspect ratio makes it like a cute phone that I liked holding a lot. I guess the other big feature about this S10 line is the Infinity O notch style. And I just want to say my slightly controversial take on all these phones is that there's still bezels on all of these phones. It's not enough. We're really not there yet. And I can still see the bezels on the top of the bottom of the phone. They're distracting when there's no notch, when it's just like a tiny circle that's not near the edges of the screen, really. So
Yeah.
so we're
Yeah,
not
when
in
it
a
comes to the
reckless.
notch thing, all the Android OEMs are kind of doing the same thing right now, where they're just doing kind of like a small bottom chin of various sizes. Some of them are pretty big, and some of them are getting really small. Like, I mean, I think of, the recent OnePlus and this device. Like the chin is getting like pretty almost not noticeable. But at the same time, the iPhone has its differentiator in the fact that it's actually like symmetrical. Which
Yes, that
it kind of bothers me that these other devices aren't there yet. And
100%.
yeah,
It's
I don't know.
annoying.
And yeah, the notch thing is, I think I'm glad to say that I think we're finally getting past that conversation. Like, I think of all the stuff that happened with Samsung this week, I don't think many people were talking about the notch.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, it wasn't really a notch. I guess you can't call it a notch anymore because it's not really a notch in the bezel. It's just a punch out. But yeah, people aren't talking about it, which I'm really happy to see. It's just kind of an accepted thing. And
copying the notch, the first notch.
yeah, we totally missed that.
Yeah, we missed the
coming out
first
and
half of
developing their own technology.
We missed all of that. Your internet cut
Really?
off.
Yeah, it cut out.
No. Okay, so that so basically, props on Samsung for not following Apple and copying their notch like every other company did, including Google. They stuck out to their own design technology, their own display technology, because they can do that and they know what's coming down the road from their R&D studios, and made something unique. So props to them.
Yeah, I would agree and also give props.
So what else about these phones?
I mean, there's my favorite thing personally is the fact that Samsung's finally doing the ultra wide camera. Because I've wanted that on anything but LG since LG put it out the first time.
Yeah, it's in the context of what Google is doing further down the road. It'll be interesting to see if they stick to that one camera approach in the back, because there are clear hardware limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like a wide angle camera is something that people can recognize? I doubt Google can do it in software.
No, there's no way they could do it in software. But every time I think Steven, you were the one who said when you were testing out the Pixel 3 XL and you showed people the wide angle selfie,
Yeah,
they absolutely loved it. People have had the same reaction when LG first did the wide angle camera, and I want that on every phone because it's really useful. Because you can only go, like, when you're close to something, you can only go so far back without you losing detail. But how often do you really use the telephoto lens, which is always inferior anyway?
Yeah, it's not enough. 2x zoom is not enough to justify that second existing.
I completely agree with that, especially now that Google's able to use algorithms to improve the zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of, whenever that happened with the Pixel 3, it made the iPhone made the iPhone look silly for having separate hardware to do the same thing. Because the quality difference is almost indistinguishable to me, between 2x zoom on the Pixel and 2x telephoto on an iPhone.
Yeah, I really want to see on the next Pixel the same camera, especially because on Samsung, that sensor is not optically stabilized, and obviously their software stabilization isn't as good as Google's. So I would love to see Google do that, because they'll be able to stabilize it correctly, which means you won't have the 4K crop.
So I guess that's pretty much it for S10, S10 Plus. Like we said, just a lot of the same.
And actually, I do have one more question. What do you think will sell better, the E or the entry-level S10? What are people buying?
I think the E is going to do well, the same way the iPhone XR has done well. What do you think, Ben?
I think Okay, so the S10 starts at $900, which is basically the same payment you're gonna have. It's a lower payment than you're gonna have for the 10s. I think the 10's probably gonna be the top seller, but the 10e is not gonna be far behind it.
Mm.
The 10e is gonna be
Is
the one that the carriers throw into those deals where it's like, oh, you can get it for $5 a month or something.
it is impressive hardware, honestly.
For the
Oh,
price, it is.
I just realized that Samsung and Apple are now back on the same, for this very short period in time, they're back on the same numbering. So like last year, for instance, we had the S9, S9 Plus, and iPhone 10s and 10s Max, and the iPhone 10R, and before that, the iPhone. It was like they got very disconnected in terms of naming. But for the next however many months, it's the S10, S10 Plus, S10e, and then iPhone 10R, 10s, 10s Max. Lots of 10s, but I'm guessing Apple's going to go to the 11 this fall. I don't know. We have no way of knowing, but
not our wheelhouse.
Moving on, let's talk about the Galaxy Fold. What do you guys think? I'll let you guys tell me why I'm wrong first, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong about me being wrong.
Okay.
Ben, you want to go first?
I mean, mine's pretty short and to the point. I think it's a pretty incredible piece of hardware. I think it's extremely cool, and it would have a use case, but I think absolutely no one on this planet should buy it for $1,980. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common take.
Yeah.
My take is that more manufacturers should do crazy shit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so this is my first Samsung event, and hearing DJ Co and company presenting, I kind of got the message they're going for, that phone innovation, that this is the next 10 years of innovation, that phones today might be stagnating feature-wise and stuff, and bringing your R&D project out of the door is a good way to not make it feel slow. And it's crazy, it's cool, it's futuristic. I think we need more of that personally. And there's the popular argument on Twitter that this is the Google Glass and this is going to take people away, make people less interested in the Android foldables form factor going forward. And I think that's ridiculous. I think it's not going to develop privacy stigma, or it's you using it. It's not going to make you look weird. It's not that thick. It's people aren't going to point and say, "What the hell are you using?" So I think that argument is slightly silly. But that said, this is a futuristic piece of technology, and I think more companies should be commended on this, especially companies that definitely have the R&D talent, they have the structure, they have the money to burn and push this out and innovate and see what people think and iterate on the fact that there's actual people using it to help foster the next generation. So yes, it's expensive. Nobody should buy it, definitely, but I think that's the extent of my criticism to it.
I think that not only should no one buy it, I think that Samsung has made a move here where, relatively speaking, I think these are going to sell like 0 units, like near zero. And if near zero for the smartphone business means they sell 1,500 of them, or if it means they sell 15,000 of them, I think it's going to be very, very close to almost nothing, because I just cannot see. I mean, I made this point on Twitter that if you want a tablet, you can get a way, way, way better tablet. Actually, you can get 3 of a way, way, way better tablet for the same price as this very bad tablet. So I think any consumer is smart enough to see that this is a terrible value. And so I agree with both of you that not only should no one buy it, but I don't think it's going to sell. And it's like, I feel like it's kind of counterproductive for companies like Samsung to come out and announce a product And I kind of partially disagree with you, Abner, because I do think that it can hurt the form factor and it can hurt its further development.
Do tell.
If this thing sells terribly, if it crashes and burns and they sell like nothing, then I feel like that will be at least a little bit of a deterrent, not only for Samsung itself, especially for Samsung itself, as they move forward. I'm sure they're already working on the follow-up model. I'm sure the second generation is already being built.
Definitely.
So I'm not saying there won't be a second one. I'm just saying that it would make a lot more sense to introduce the foldable form factor with a product that's actually going to be popular. I mean, Apple kind of sort of debuted if we're just using, form factors, if that's the category we're talking about, new form factors, they kind of sort of debuted the whole, bezel-less phone without, basically bezel-less with a notch. They kind of debuted that form factor and they undersold it, right? Like they basically said, like, this is for those of you that want next year's device this year. And they kind of, undersold themselves, and then they over-delivered, because it turned out, even for $1,000, this actually turned out to be a really popular consumer product. And I think, and this is kind of my next point, my biggest problem with the Galaxy Fold is not the Galaxy Fold itself, it's how Samsung delivered the Galaxy Fold. They went up on stage and said, this is the new smartphone. This is going to define the next 10 years of phones, which, one, no, we don't know that. I mean, you can't say that. We don't have any evidence of that. For a lot of reasons. I mean, it's obviously going to be, in terms of pure component costs, going to be, I'll let you talk in just a second, Abner, just hold on. In just component costs, it's going to be significantly more expensive than any just standalone. And for the foreseeable future, the fact that it's foldable causes a lot of hardware compromises that make it a worse tablet than any tablet on the market, even Samsung's own bad tablets. So yeah, my biggest problem is that they pitched it as this is revolutionary, and it's definitely going to remain not revolutionary for a while. And I think, third point, biggest evidence of this is that Samsung's not letting anyone touch it. And the demo was extremely orchestrated. They did everything. It felt very much like a first-gen iPhone demo, and not in a good way. It seemed like they were following a track. They were doing everything in a very certain way, or else the whole thing's going to crash and burn. And I'm fascinated that this thing's even able to ship next month, because if they're not able, if they don't have units on hand to let the press touch one right now, then how are they going to ship in mid-April? It just doesn't make sense. And on top of that, even if they did have one unit on hand for, like, I don't know, whatever publication to, like, get an exclusive hands-on with or something like that. Even if they did have that, that also just further kind of proves that in reality, they know that this is a very niche, very exclusive, no one is going to buy this kind of device. And it's basically a tech demo. If they thought that it was anything more than that, they would have had lots of units on hand and they wouldn't have priced it $2,000. So that's the short version of my feelings on it. I think it's cool. Props to Samsung for doing something unique and interesting. But it seems like there's a heap of compromises and a very terrible value proposition. And I partially agree that it is only going to hinder further deviation from the norm in the smartphone space.
Okay, so every new technology, frankly, needs a sucker to push it out the door. There needs to be the sucker that makes this technology first and gets valuable input based on putting it out in the world. You can't iterate a technology based on groupthink in your own R&D lab. Building on that, the technology is going to get better. That's the history of technology. Miniaturization. The screen technology of making it thinner it's not in the same vein as battery technology, where we don't, for the foreseeable future, we do not see the ability for the battery capacity to increase, and etc. etc. But display technology has historically shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And I think betting against this idea that the technology won't get better is not sustainable, because it will eventually. Like 10 years down the road, if you can get a regular phone that's as like today's phone, one screen, or if you can get the foldable that has no limitations, that has no compromises, is the same size, and you get something very real, a larger screen size as a result, I don't know why people would go back to a single screen phone. I think the value proposition is there, and having a larger screen is valuable to have. There's intrinsic value in that advantage. So I think the use case is there, as the two of you said. And in terms of functionality, in terms of whether this first one it's going to be an unmitigated disaster. But this is Samsung. They're a billions rich company. If they're not going to throw it away on the first shot, again, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that they know that they have accurate market projections of how many are going to sell, and that they didn't overshoot. They know the first one is going to suck. That's the point of getting it out there, being a thought leader. I hate myself for saying that. But again, like this idea of getting feedback and seeing how people actually use it and building apps, it needs to start now. So might as well do it.
Fair enough. I don't really have any rebuttal to that. I haven't had much time to think through it, but I just think that it seems like typical Samsung. And for Samsung's sake, I don't know if being first for first sake is going to do them any good in the long run. I mean, this feels like the perfect opportunity for Apple to wait 3 years and do a really, really good one in like 3, maybe 4 even years from now, and just destroy the whole market. Like that, it seemed like you're saying, like, we have to get them out in the market for them to get feedback and for the development to really happen. It can't be happening in the vacuum of an R&D lab. But that's kind of what Apple's notorious for doing, is they're notorious for keeping all their development in that vacuum of an R&D lab and eventually coming out with something that they've deemed to be excellent in their own eyes, whether it is or not. But it just seems like, to me, Samsung's doing themselves a disservice by coming out with this. I mean, it feels like, I don't know, the equivalent of owning a piece of fancy jewelry, but for someone who's really, really into tech gadgets. Like, that's what this is. And I mean, there will be a few iterations of it for the next few years that are just slightly better. But I don't know. In the long run, it seems like, I don't know. I feel like Apple's going to come out with something in a few years that's going to be, they're going to have it figured out, right? They're like, we have a lot of questions right now. I mean, there's one question is, how durable is this foldable, material?
Yeah.
How many times
you can see the crease clearly?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's like that's one of the questions is like, how bad does the crease get? How long does it take before you start to really see the crease? Like, whatever. And other questions are like, the display technology itself. We're downgrading significantly from the Gorilla Glass we've gotten used to from the last 5 years. What about sand getting in that triangle crack in the middle and scratching the screen in between the screen? Like the screen is like folded on itself, and it's like rubbing up against itself all day. It's like that. There's just so many different things to think about. And another thing is, like, are people really ever going to use in the case of the Galaxy Fold, are people ever going to use that screen on the front, or are they just going to use it in tablet mode 95% of the time? And another thing that I feel like people aren't talking about is this thing, if you keep it folded, is like, it's thick, THICC thick. Like, it is, it's gonna stick out your pants pocket. There's just so many problems that need to be solved, and I feel like Samsung should have waited another year or two, solving a lot of these problems.
Okay, that's also another, I guess. Okay, so Google detailed two kinds of foldables. The device where there are two screens, one inside and one on the outside, and the device that only has one continuous screen. Straight out, the approach Samsung went with these two screens, that comedically tiny one on the front, is bad. They shouldn't have done that. Whatever Xiaomi is doing, and I think we saw the X.
Huawei.
Yes, the
Huawei Mate X.
Mate X. 100% better ideas. And I guess to add, it's not just Samsung. That's the thing. Like the Android phone OEM industry is moving to that in a united pace, with backing from Google, I guess, approval from Google. So in that, I think if everybody is going to, it's not just Samsung that's going. If it fails, which I completely granted that this first generation is going to fail, it's not just Samsung, it's the entire industry. And I sincerely hope that everybody can take a loss, and after one device, they don't just scrap this product, because it's promising and it will get good eventually.
Yeah, I mean, if it eventually gets to a point where you can spend a premium, admittedly, it's going to be a premium no matter what, and you can get a thin device that folds over on itself, that, gives you, when folded, is around the thickness or maybe a little thicker than this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you can get that, you get the, the phone form factor, not too much thicker than what we already live with today, plus an unfolded tablet form factor. I can definitely see, I can see that could be compelling for me personally. So I'm not, bearish on this concept. It's just the Galaxy Fold to me just seems like a silly adventure in excess. That's what it seems like to me. But anyways, let's move on. Actually, we can talk, this kind of perfectly segues into talking a little bit just before we close out the show on what we expect from Mobile World Congress.
No, wearables. Galaxy, the Samsung's wearables. I think.
Give us your 5-second thesis on what's important about Samsung's wearable announcements.
It's round. It's round. It helps.
You're not upset at all about losing the rotary dial?
I am very much upset about that.
Okay. My very high level thought about that rotary dial from the beginning was, it's just another hardware component to break that can fail.
Thankfully, it never failed really for many people.
Yeah, no, I still know people using a Gear S2 and it works flawlessly.
Anyways, yeah, that's a fair criticism, I think, but it didn't pan out, in my opinion. But what the Galaxy? You're talking about the Galaxy Watch Active primarily, like that's what has you excited, and why are you excited about it?
It's okay. One, it's better than every single Android Wear OS device. Clearly, I still think Wear OS is the better platform, and if they were able to put it on this form factor without compromise, I think Google would have a moderate hit in the industry. But I think this is the year. I think 2019 should be Google's year of deciding whether they're willing to commit seriously to Wear OS or whether they should get out.
Yeah, I think that they're going to do both. I don't think they're going to get out. I think that they're just going to continue to develop and support Wear OS as, like, the same way they're kind of supporting Android. Stock Android, base Android open source project is nothing like what we see on any device anymore. It's very bare bones, and there's so much proprietary software that's built on top of it for every single OEM. And I think the same thing's going to continue with Wear OS for the foreseeable future. I think that it's just going to be left this very bare bones thing. I think that Google might open things up a little bit more to let people, they've had a very firm hand on letting OEMs build their own stuff on top of Wear OS, and I think they might open that up. And at the same time, they're going to build a very, very customized version of Wear OS that they're going to sell on the Pixel Watch.
Hmm.
I think that's what we'll see happen. I mean,
One
or
more,
yeah, Fuchsia is a whole other
yeah.
conversation.
Actually, a question for Ben. So, as a do existing Tizen Galaxy Gear, Galaxy Watch, whatever it's called now, is this going to sell to the exist? Who is this device? Who do you think this Galaxy Active is for? Is it for the existing users that want to upgrade, or is it going to attract new ones?
That's really tough, actually, because all of the previous releases, this is something new from them, because all the previous ones have just been, oh, you wanted the Gear S3 stuff, but you wanted it smaller. Here's the Gear Sport, but the Watch Active is a completely different piece of hardware from the Galaxy Watch, and the Galaxy Watch is actually the other version of it. I think is smaller. So I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it's the market cell seems. Why aren't they building a better? Well, presumably they have a better Galaxy Watch ready.
Yeah, because
small.
realistically, the only difference between this watch and the smaller Galaxy Watch is the rotating bezel and the fact that this one has blood pressure monitoring. That's
and
the
no
only
cellular.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no cellular. That's right. The other one has cellular, if you want it. There's, and I guess, well, the price too. This one's $200. So yeah, never mind. I completely forgot about that because the Galaxy Watch starts at $330, I think. So yeah, this is just Samsung's. Hey, this is our cheap one. That's what it is.
I can honestly see people flocking to this, even regular Android users.
Yeah, I completely forgot the price. So yeah,
is
the price
right
is going to
there.
get people. Yeah, that's actually
So
I totally forgot about that.
So that competition for Wear OS and maybe even the Apple Watch, maybe but not really, is interesting. And like this is why I'm so excited about it, because I think I'm excited about it for the competition. It's for the real competition it's going to bring to whatever Google's doing with Wear OS, what Fitbit is doing with their stuff, what Garmin is doing with their things. So I think it's like this is price. Once you get it cheap enough, once it looks good, the market starts to move, and either the other players are going to adapt, or Samsung could run with it on Android.
Yeah, and honestly, this is them kind of just building on what top of they already got, because they're already, like that report that came out I think it was last week. They're already, obviously behind Apple, Fitbit, all of them, but they're above Wear OS and everybody. They're in that, I think, the top 3. So this is a home run probably.
Yeah.
As long as I haven't looked at what the interface, how it treats the lack of the bezel, but because honestly, unless they change something, it's going to be a nightmare to use that thing without the bezel.
Yeah, and the bezel is thick, and the actual screen size is small.
Like if it was no bezel, I would be 100% on board with it, but there's no point. It's just wasted space now.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll see.
That's my 5 seconds.
All right. Well, going back to the segue before I got rudely interrupted.
Yeah. Excitedly interrupted, not rudely. Big
Excitedly
difference.
and rudely. Well, I was going to talk about the Huawei Mate X, which was kind of a little bit of a scoop, kind of. I don't know, not really, but we posted that today, and it's like Abner was mentioning, kind of like a look at an alternative foldable, and we'll probably see more than just that one. I think Xiaomi's doing one too, right? And we'll probably see even more in the coming months and years, but especially in MWC this year, it seems like the trends are foldables and 5G. And 5G as a whole, we didn't even get to talk about the S10 5G edition,
which is a ridiculous piece of hardware.
And it's kind of pointless to own.
Very pointless to
own. But yeah, so we'll probably see a lot of 5G phones. It seems like a lot of OEMs, Android OEMs, are kind of banking on 5G as a marketing push just to sell the new thing. But unfortunately, 5G networks just don't exist really. So we'll probably be a couple more years before that actually matters to consumers. So don't buy into it yet. What's up?
And protest when your phone says 5GE. That's going to this MWC where Samsung already announced everything they have for the year. It feels like a make or break year for everybody else in the Android ecosystem. Like LG is, we've seen the LG G8 leak. It's nothing. It's not going to change their fortunes. What?
No. Is there anyone that has any chance of showing something this week that will change their fortunes? Anyone? I mean,
I don't think there's anyone who's going to show off anything that's going to because Huawei is going to show off the Mate X. It looks cool, but it's not going to change it because they're already doing good.
Sure.
Yeah. And the their Western presence is not going to improve.
Yeah, Motorola already showed off the G7, which is.
What is their next flagship? Do we even know what the next flagship, the Motorola's next flagship?
Do we care? Honestly,
they made one heck of a deal out of the Motorola One Power. That disappointment.
I'm just waiting for them to go to a new letter. I mean, we've had the C, the G, the X, the Z. Like the next flag. I mean, it seems like after they kind of get bored with a letter, they're like, "Well, we need a new letter to make it seem new." And so it's. I'm expecting their next flagship to be the Moto Y. The Moto Y.
Moto Y. Yes,
the Moto Y and Moto Y.
That's their foldable.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
the W.
Yeah. I mean, the X was the flagship for a while, and then the Z. What's after Z? There's nothing after Z. So I guess maybe we'll never see another Moto flagship ever again.
Yeah, they're doing well in the mid range, but it's not as particularly inspiring. Sony is a bit of an interesting one. I think if LG ever failed, LG and Sony have been extremely persistent into keep making phones, even though their fortunes aren't really improving. So if LG fails, I think it's Sony's place to take that third in terms of size and reach. But Sony should be doing better.
Sony's problem is that they don't sell any devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
LG just cracks me up because, what was it? Last year they said, "Oh, we're not going to release phones on this schedule anymore," and then they just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Everything they've said they're changing just doesn't happen. Like the software upgrade center that did absolutely nothing, and they made the biggest deal in the world about that. That's just what cracks me up about with LG. And the G8's nothing new again.
Yeah, we're getting off that TikTok cycle, guys. That's just not our thing anymore. Like they're too cool for it, or it's like I don't know. They don't want to it's like they're losing the game, and the only way to win the game is to not play the game anymore, basically. That's what it is. Yeah, and obviously we have a zombie of HTC. Which,
yes, HTC.
I forgot about them.
They're not doing anything this year, are they?
Not doing know of yet.
Actually, I think they're doing something.
Wait, serious? Oh, the Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I think they're doing a mid-range phone or something.
Yeah, that's whatever. The Bitcoin phone. What is it called? It has a funny name.
Exodus.
Egyptian. Exodus, yes. Does our resident Bitcoin expert have any commentary on that?
Only that there's a very popular cryptocurrency wallet also called Exodus, so that I personally use. So
I just realized Samsung never talked about that cryptocurrency thing in their launch.
That was
all right. I think we've
scraped the bottom of the barrel.
Yes, exactly. What are you? Let's round out the show. What's your the thing you're looking forward to? By the way, we'll have Damien at MWC, so he'll be actually on the ground, filling all our coverage. But I guess to round out the show, what's the number one thing or the thing you're looking forward to for MWC? Personally, it is nothing from any of the Android OEMs. I'm excited to see what Google announces because they always do some kind of Google or Android related announcement alongside all of the OEM stuff. So I'm excited to see what that is, and because the last few years have been pretty important for that. So hopefully Google has some surprises up its sleeve.
My MWC stuff is Assistant. The smart home smart homes are the focus of CES. And in past years, Google has always moved the phone stuff to MWC where it makes sense. So I'm looking forward to seeing whatever announcements they do that are phone focused.
I mean, I'm excited for that stuff too. I also want to see more about the Mate X because
best in show probably.
Unfortunately, Huawei's relationship with the United States is degrading to nothing. So
in real time.
At one point, not that long ago, it seemed like Huawei's going to try and make a mark on the U.S. market, but
yeah, like a Nexus or something.
That dream seems very dead.
In a tablet form factor, who knows?
All right. Well, we will be, as mentioned, at MWC this week. Stay tuned at 95google.com for all of your MWC coverage. It'll basically, I mean, a lot of it's going to be this weekend. So if you're not a usual weekend reader, this is the weekend to do it. Until then, you can tune into Alphabet Scoop here every week. We record this podcast and publish every Thursday morning. We're obviously not recording on Wednesday today, but that's our usual. And we'll probably be back next Wednesday after, such as iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Google Play, and you can also listen over at 95google.com. Thanks for tuning in as always, and thanks to Abner and Ben this time for joining us. And next time we have a Samsung related / gaming / Android OEM MWC show, we'll definitely have you on. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Later.